Hi everyone, we are Group 7 from Set 2, and we are here today to talk about our report with the topic The Digital Divide Hinders Economic Growth in Malaysia Evidence from Urban and Rural Areas. My name is Zhang Xingyue, and I'm here with my friends Liu Zihan, Song Xuhao, Zhang Hengshuo, and Guo Jiaming. Now let's begin.
Hello everyone. Today I will present the introduction part of our study. Our topic is about how the digital divide handles economic growth in Malaysia, especially between urban and rural areas. In recent years, digital technology has become very important for economic development. People now depend more on the internet for learning, working, doing business, making payments, and getting information. For Malaysia, digitalization is also an important national direction. Policies such as My Digital and GENDELA shows that the government wants to improve digital infrastructure and build a more inclusive digital economy. However, the benefits of digital development are not shared equally by everyone. Based on the figures in our slide, internet access in urban households reached 99% in 2025, where rural households only reached 19.7%. Although the rural rate has improved compared with 2024, the previous year, there's still a clear gap between urban and rural areas. This gap is important because internet access is not only about going online, it's also related to education, business opportunities, digital banking, remote work, and productivity. Urban communities usually have better broadband quality, more stable internet connection, and strong digital skills. Because of this, they can participate more easily in the digital economy. On the other hand, rural communities may face weaker connectivity, lower digital literacy, and a fewer chance to use digital platforms effectively. Therefore, our study focuses on three main points. First, we examine the extent of the digital divide between urban and rural areas in Malaysia. Second, we analyze how this digital divide affects economic growth. And third, we evaluate whether the government initiatives are effective in reducing this gap. For the methodology, study use a qualitative approach. We rely on secondary data from the official government reports, DOSM statistics, and GENDELA related information, World Bank reports, and academic articles. We also use a content analysis and a comparative analysis to compare urban and rural areas. Thank you.
Okay, let's move to the next part, the literature review of our study. Based on previous studies, researchers found that better internet access and stronger digital infrastructure can significantly improve economic growth, productivity, employment opportunities, and business performance. Digital technology allows people and businesses to participate more actively in the digital economy through online learning, e-commerce, remote work, and digital financial services. However, many studies also highlighted that there is still a significant digital gap between urban and rural areas in Malaysia. Urban areas generally have better broadband quality, stronger digital infrastructure, and higher digital literacy levels. In contrast, rural communities still face limited internet access, weaker connectivity, and fewer opportunities to benefit from digital technologies. Previous findings also show that weak digital access in rural areas reduces participation in online education, digital jobs, and e-commerce activities. As a result, labor productivity and income growth in rural areas remain lower compared to urban areas. Some studies further explain that the digital divide contributes to widening income inequality and uneven economic development between regions. In addition, researchers found that digital literacy is another important factor affecting economic participation. Even when internet infrastructure is available, low digital skills may prevent rural populations from fully utilizing digital technologies effectively. Overall, most studies concluded that internet access, digital infrastructure, digital literacy, and government digital policies are important factors influencing digital participation and economic growth in Malaysia. Lastly, our conceptual framework shows that these factors influence digital participation, which then affects labor productivity, income levels, and overall economic growth.
Well, although Malaysia has achieved high internet penetration, a significant digital divide still exists between urban and rural areas. Urban households enjoy 98.8% internet access, compared with only 90.3% in rural areas. The computer usage gap is even larger, at 20.2 percentage points. These differences limit rural residents' participation in online education, e-commerce, and digital finance service. As a result, rural communities have fewer economic opportunities and lower productivity compared with urban areas.
Next, I'd like to talk about the impact of digital divide on Malaysia's economic growth. Further macro evidence, although national internet coverage is high, a clear urban-rural gap remains. Household internet access 99% in cities, but only 19.7% in rural areas, a gap of 8.3 percentage points. Even more striking is computer usage, 87% in urban area versus only 65.5% in rural area. That is a 21.5 percentage point gap. The World Bank confirms that high costs and slow speed continue to hinder business digitalization. Now look at the case study. Rural Sabah and Sarawak still left behind. Sarawak's 5G coverage is only 63.8%. Computer usage is just 65.5%. Poor network and low digital literacy several limit local business activities. In contrast, urban Kuala Lumpur enjoy 100% home internet access. Digital investment reached over 54 billion ringgit in the third quarter of 2025, creating nearly 22,000 high-value jobs. The two tables clearly summarize this contrast. This shows that the digital divide directly is translating into unequal economic opportunities. Now, how does the digital divide slow growth? The transmission mechanism starts with the digital divide, then an education gap, a skill gap, and then a productivity gap, and income gap, and finally an economic growth gap. Each step reinforces the next. Over the long term, three constraints under out. First, rural labor productivity is constrained because the firm cannot digitalize. Second, human capital is blocked. The 21.5% point computer gap reduces rural competitiveness. Third, opportunities are uneven. Most digital investment stay in city. As the World Bank says, closing the digital divide is essential for inclusive growth.
Malaysian government has introduced several initiatives, including NFCP, My Digital, and Jendela. To improve digital inclusion, Jendela has achieved 96.9% 4G coverage and expanded broadband access to 7.74 million premises. These policies have significantly improved Malaysia's digital infrastructure. However, challenges remain, especially in remote areas such as Sabah and Sarawak. Therefore, future policies should focus not only on infrastructure development, but also on digital skills training and equal participation in the digital economy.
Okay, now we move to next part, which is the summary of findings. Based on our study, we found that a noticeable digital divide still exists between urban and rural areas in Malaysia. Although Malaysia has made significant progress in digital development, rural communities continue to face weaker internet access, poor broadband quality, and limited digital resources. So this gap affects educational opportunities, digital skills development, and labor productivity. People in rural areas often have fewer opportunities to access online learning and participate in digital economic activities. As a result, the digital divide contributes to income inequality and limits economic growth in rural regions. We also found that government initiatives such as NFCP, My Digital, and Jandela have helped improve internet connectivity across the country. However, challenges still remain, especially in remote areas where digital access and digital literacy are relatively lower. So, to reduce the digital divide, our study processes four main recommendations. First, the government should continue expanding broadband coverage in rural and remote areas, especially in Sabah and Sarawak. Second, more digital skills training programs should be provided to help rural residents participate effectively in the digital economy. Next, rural SMEs should be encouraged to adopt digital technologies and e-commerce platforms to improve productivity and competitiveness. So finally, internet services should become more affordable through subsidies and cooperation with telecommunication providers. In conclusion, reducing the urban rural digital divide is important for achieving more balanced and inclusive economic growth in Malaysia. With continuous investment in digital infrastructure, skill development, and inclusive policies, all Malaysians can benefit from the country's digital transformation. So that's all for our presentation. Thank you for your listening.